Hey, welcome everybody to the Enhance Your World show. Again, I'm your co-host Chris Alba. Larkin will be joining us shortly. Um, we tend to be on opposite schedules, so I tend to rise early and she's still going to bed. So apologize for the inconvenience and the inconsistency, but it goes right into the today's topic of the art form of letting go. Letting go of the expectations of how it should, could, or would be when it's not showing up that way in the moment. Um, it takes a level of, you know, we can use all these fun keywords and buzzwords of accountability and self awareness and compassion and, communication and navigate um, the different streams of consciousness, time and space, right? And the different realms that we can do it in mentally, emotionally, physically, relationally, because that's the gift that we've been given. And of this time, never before in this time of our known history has there been access to so much information and cultures and different ways of walking as a human being and the cause and effects of each way. And then finding the responsibility within ourselves to walk our way. And when we have empathy, we know what it feels like to when we're hurt. We know what that feels like. So we're not trying to create more hurt upon the world and on each other or even on ourselves, right? But when you truly care and love yourself, you understand that even in the darkest, deepest, most painful times of my life, um, I knew there was something on the other side. When I committed suicide and surrendered it all. I mean, this is the art form of letting it go, and this is really can be really deep and dark. And um, you know, I'll try to do my best to communicate it wholly, but the reason and completely, and the reason that I was choosing to end my physical life at that time was the fear of having to live a life that wasn't mine, to following the path of my father and my ancestors. Not that they were bad people, it's just that wasn't my walk. It wasn't what I was here to do, it wasn't my purpose. And even though it was easy for me at times to surrender my ego and my identity and create a new character or persona to be successful in the public image or those types of things. Attraction and abundance isn't the same as alignment. And every time I hit a peak moment, there was always this emptiness within it that seemed to want to urge me forward into something else, something new. How can how can this work in a better way? Um, how can we provide more resources? How can we provide more services? How can we provide more profits so we can continue to grow the organization that I was a part of in whatever walk that was in? Um, and we have a lot of different labels and containers and rules and definitions between what's right or wrong or what's good or bad. But it's also been in my experience that everything I thought was bad at one time led me to something good, and everything that led me down the path of what I felt was good or right at the time led me to something painful and then would be labeled bad. But it was the resilience, it was the being able to rejuvenate, to recuperate, to recover, to let go of those behaviors, or let go of those identities, or let go of those relationships, or let go of whatever it was that allowed me to create a fresh start. And that's the new beginning. That's the bedrock. That's the bottom of the well, where we've gone through the emotional waters all the way down to the bottom of the rock, where the bottom of the well is blocking the emotions. And when we find that level of depth, we can still experience our emotions without residue or resistance. Um, and be consciously aware of what we're thinking, what we're feeling, and how we're behaving, the words that we're speaking, the actions that we're taking or not taking, those types of things. And those will help us see patterns. Last night I was speaking with my parents about, the interesting thing is when you fast off certain foods, such as sugar and things like that, when you reintroduce it to your body, you notice its effect. And we were talking about, when I allow myself to have, a sweet treat, how, especially if it's not like more nature based um, foods rather than packaged processed foods, um, if they use whole sugar, it doesn't have as much effect on me as if it's an artificial or has all the dyes and things like that. I can feel the inflammation in my body. So being aware of that, I can choose consciously whether I choose to participate with it or not, or when to participate with it or not. And I was reflecting on that on the way here, and I remember there was a time where I was super disciplined and I didn't allow myself any variation, because I was learning how to walk again, right? And and I remember a friend of mine that I was in um, conversation with. We were at an event, and I was refusing a lot of the things that were there, because they were the cakes and the candies and the things that I wasn't consuming at that time. And it was brought to my attention that, um, so we have a floater in the wellness center. They're doing a float therapy, so I'm trying to be respectful of um, their time, while we're doing the show. So, but what I was saying was, um, there was a time that I was told that I was snobbish, or I was difficult, or I didn't allow people to really um, feel comfortable around me because I was so disciplined about what I ate and what I drank that people didn't know what to offer me. And I'd always laugh, and I'm like, I'm pretty simple. Some fruits, if you have it, would be cool. Some veggies, and if you have water, coffee, tea, it's pretty simple for me. Um, but that's my walk. That's how I chose to do things. And when other people choose to respond back and saying how you are being, how it affects them in ways, it's just for our awareness. So the letting go is the need to defend ourselves, or say, well, this is just who I am, or heaven forbid you cut family, or people that you've had long-term relationships with off because you decided to change your diet, or a different way, identify as a different type of human being, or align with a different organization or political, whatever the identity is. The purpose of this conscious awakening is to awaken to the fact that thoughts, feelings are energy that help move us through our behaviors, whether we're conscious or not. And many times it takes pain to wake us up from our unconscious slumber, because efficient and effective brings in results. And the more consistent we are, the more consistent results we get. So when we're in a season of getting, the things that we desire, we're like, oh, we're on track, we're in flow, we're in, the abundant state, we're this, that, and the other. Well, that has to take from somewhere or something. It's all energy. And it doesn't mean that it's not always constantly expanding, because the mind is constantly expanding. The heart is always evolving through the processes of our thoughts. That's our electromagnetic charge, and our focus and our attention allows us to direct ourselves through the possibilities of who we are, what we are, why we are, and then be able to relate that to other people. It's not to impose one way of being human over another, because it's been my experience, when someone shows me something that is beneficial to learn, I want to learn it. I'm inspired to learn. I'm inspired to grow. I'm inspired to be a better human being. And when we're telling people how to be, and how we need to be treated, and how they're not treating us right, and how, like, those are good things to have a conversation about. But also be aware that you're creating shame, guilt, and all those other things. And someone says to me, I really like when you do this or that and the other, that's inspiring to continue to do said thing. If someone doesn't like you doing something, and you're making efforts to shift a pattern in your behaviors or your thoughts or your feelings, and you keep going through the relapse and recycle process for a little bit, we need to be very delicate with each other in those processes, because as we're uncovering that stuff, it's like a serpent without its new skin yet. It's a little touchy. It's a little scared. It's a little sensitive. And it's once we can integrate and embody those frequencies of thoughts and feelings without losing our sense of direction in our body, then we tend to have less resistance. Even though that there's things that could be considered resistance, we move through with ease and grace, because we've created the responsibilities and the accountability to walk our own moral and ethical walk. I was reflecting today on my dad came over today, and he was talking about keeping the landscaping clear, and all the different things that he wants his place to look like, and mine doesn't look like that. And because I allow natural volunteer crops to grow in some of my beds, and I still have pretty flowers and things like that, but then I also have plantain and broadleaf, and the skinny stuff, and mullein, and dandelions, and those types of things in my garden, as I use them. It's part of plant medicine. It's not all psychedelics and rave festivals, to walk a true path, in my opinion. When you walk a medicine path, you understand that everything you do is medicine. It's either healing you or causing more disease, more order or disorder. And because there's always a balance of it, and there's a time and place for it. And um, as someone that likes to indulge in things, and many times people would say forms of addiction, because they're habitual, such as tobacco and I use marijuana on a regular basis, um, and that those are the choices that I have, and I know that I make those choices, and I know the positive and negative effects they have, and that's where I'm at with my walk. Now I go without it, no problem. When I have the opportunity to just relax and be recreational with my life, um, that's my new thing that I'm working on healing. To where my whole life is my recreation. My whole life is, because there were times in my walk where I needed time and space, and I would ask my partners, and my relationships and things like that. Like when I come home, I need to just relax. I just need to be me. If you want help or you need something, I'm here to help. But I need to know, and I just need you to ask. And if I can, I will. And I'm doing that more and more and more in my life of, sharing with people. I always want to be there. I always want to help. I always want to be available. But also, it's impossible for me to always be available and still be available for myself and the other things that I have commitments to. And so it's finding balance within those things within my daily life of how, you know, just for an example, I'm working on my schedule of where I'm going to be, because I have multiple places that I am responsible for. And I can't always just be at one of them. I was trying to be here at the center more, 7 days a week, and that doesn't give me time at my house to take care of my housework, um, and so there's always, um, contrast, but it's letting go of, like, the things that are like, oh my god, if I'm not there, then nobody's gonna be able to walk in, or pop in and see the place, or sign up for a service or anything like that. And like, well, yeah, that's why we have appointments, um, and they can schedule their appointment, and it might not be, you know being available all the time, like a lot of people would expect to be able to just pop into a place and whatnot. But the services that we offer aren't always available. um, we have one float tank, so if somebody's floating, you can't get in it. If somebody's not floating in it, then yeah, it's available. um, and that's how it works. And so we want to, and encourage people to set appointments, so then people aren't making the drive down here and not getting access to the services or the offerings that they had hoped for, because a massage therapist, or someone that does massage isn't here, or a Reiki healer isn't here, or a tarot reader isn't here, because the goal of this place is a community center for people to find wellness. And that doesn't mean that those of us that are choosing to help other people, um, can still be in our wellness if we don't take care of ourselves and the responsibilities that we have within our families and within our communities. And this is the art of letting go. It's saying, I can't be and do everything sustainably. Everybody that is using the word community now tends to just want to be, the leader of a community, because it's my community. Well, what about our community? The reason that I teach the universal principles of gratitude, awareness, unity, growth, and energy, why I use those universal principles is because it unites all teachings. So no one has to do it my way. Please don't do it my way. The whole reason I'm here trying to help people is so people don't have to go through the shit that I had to go through to get on this side of it. The 20 plus years of studying, all the different things and the practices and the certifications and the trainings and the jobs and the relationships and the addictions and the suicides and the depressions and the anxieties and all the things. That's the whole purpose that they say you have to be a wounded warrior to really be a healer. If you didn't go through it yourself, you're just teaching from someone else's experience. So let it the fuck go. Oh, there goes my YouTube and my monetization. And that's the point that I'm trying to get to. That is how controlled we are at this time. They give us a leash and call it freedom. And as long as we don't challenge the majority of the narratives, then we're still likable, we're still popular, we're still this, or we're still that. But heaven forbid you see both sides of a story and see the whole truth of how the left side and the right side have to walk together to move us forward. That's how I learned to walk. I don't hop. I take one step at a time. Sometimes if I'm paying attention, maybe it's left foot right first and right foot second, or right foot first, or I haven't paid attention to that. I guess I'll come back next week and talk about it, because now I'm going to have to pay attention to it. What do I tend to lead with? Because that's pattern recognition. I remember in sales when they would talk about imposter syndrome or being scared to approach someone or talk to somebody or whatever, they would say, just switch your watch to the other wrist. And they're like, what? And like, what? How does that work? And it just changes your energy just a little bit. So if and that's why I tell my friends and my clients and myself that when I'm feeling overwhelmed or I'm feeling fearful or I'm feeling confused or any of those things, put my hand on my heart and breathe. Because no matter what's going on in the world, if my body is safe, then I am safe. I was talking to my son the other day about video games, and I was talking to him about the beautiful analogy of, life is but a video game, and we get as many different characters as we want in it, but we only get one body. That's the limitation. So for those of us that used to chase adrenaline and really like to put ourselves in physical danger and risk to feel alive and, all those things, we realize if we continue down that path, eventually that's going to be the end of us. And that's not a bad thing. We died doing something we enjoyed doing. I've lost a lot of friends to drug overdoses and things like that. And where I found peace with it was they died doing what they felt like they needed to do, what they enjoyed doing. Now it's sad that we weren't able to continue on our path together. And I mourn them and I grieve them. And, that's why I work with people that are going through that struggle. Whether it's alcohol or whatever it is. Because, Gabor Mate has a lot of beautiful teachings and a lot of beautiful practices. His whole, niche is that. And they've helped me with my own self-compassion and understanding. And they've also tripped me up. To be truthfully honest with you, I haven't figured out how to be soft and empathetic with myself and put down something that I enjoy doing, because it's not a have to right now. It's a want to. It's a desire to. And Alan Watts, and there's yogic teachings and things like that that say even the desire to end desire is still a desire. So the purpose is just to be aware, to let go of the shoulda, coulda, woulda. This is the way it was. This is how they are. This is how they treated me. And a lot of times, I'll own it for myself. If someone said that I yelled at them or treated them in a poor way, I probably did. And I can promise you, if I still have a way to connect and reach out and talk, I've asked for forgiveness. I've apologized. Asked how we could reconcile to come back into alignment with each other. And in whatever fashion that it shows up in. And that's where I would challenge people's love being only conditional, because it's based on a certain condition. I've been asked, why do you not have close relationships with certain people? Well, we just got to a point in our relationship that there wasn't a mutual reciprocity of what was being exchanged. Doesn't mean that I'm not going to be there for somebody if they need a hand. That's my choice. I can tell them no. And that's usually been a breakdown of a lot of my relationships, is when I finally say, no, that's enough. Even though I can. Because I tend to like to give unconditionally, because it helps me feel in flow. I don't feel restricted. And of course, the fantasies of heaven, the lifestyle to where you could just give as generously as you want to give, with no expectations or no worries of return, or no ways of bringing in additional revenues or anything like that. Like, of course we want that financially, but that's the energy of our spirit. That's the value that people have monetized. I'm so grateful that I got to walk the path that I had and monetized, and walked away from a multi-million-dollar contract because, it was going to destroy my relationship, which happened to be in the adult industry. And not only that, the contract stated that I basically had no say when I was at certain places. Then I had to be XYZ, and it didn't matter if I was into it or not. That's not worth any amount of money. That's why, the military didn't work for me, because I questioned orders and authority. Now, if I was dropped off into the middle of a situation, then you're going to have to do what you're going to have to do. It's not time to think. Or I try not to put myself in stressful situations. So it's easier to maintain my level of conscious frequency, of awareness. And feel the uptick of my emotions, and feel the downgrade of them, and all the various different things. and to truly sit with somebody and say, you know, there's nothing that I want from you, but there's nothing that we can't do together. There's been a level of freedom for me, even though, you know, maybe I should have less access to me or boundaries or standard. I have a standard most people can't live up to. Just don't lie. Be honest. Share what's going on with you. Got something you're excited about, please share it. If you're upset about something, please share it. Because to me, that's intimacy, that's connection, that's human relation. We're all going through things. Or we could say we're all growing through things. Some of us just grow more bitter than better. But again, that's a separation. And so we have to be very careful how we label these things. Because it's been my experience, everything at one time I thought was a bad thing tended up being a good thing. Why? Because it was something I learned and grew from. So we have to let go of those labels of like, this bad thing happened to me. Well, this happened. This is what I gained from it. This is what I learned about myself. This is what I learned about people that I was surrounding myself with at the time. You know, those types of things. But again, it's always in a level of past and presence. And then we project it forward into the future. When it's been my experience, when I didn't think people would change, even when they showed signs of shifting, I didn't see it. Now, that doesn't mean that things aren't cycles. And saying me like, oh, all right, that felt good. Okay, the cycle is going to repeat itself. Why? Because if I respond or react in a way that isn't in my highest well-being, which is affecting myself and then externally affecting somebody else, then I'll get the opportunity to repeat that lesson in another way, in another person. You know, it's so funny when some people thank you for the opportunities that you help create in their life, and then other people curse you for them. And Dalai Lama had a teaching on that. I talked about staying balanced and in harmony with yourself. He always gave the example, or at least in this lecture, that you know, when someone praises you, remind yourself of those who criticize you, and those who criticize you, remember who praise you, because that's how you stay balanced within the perspectives of other people. And then you got to tune in with yourself and see what resonates. I don't like to be yelled at, so when I yell, there's usually a reason for it. And some of it has come from past wounds that I haven't fully processed, and there's still emotional residue there. I'm consciously aware of that stuff. So in these days, I don't tend to build the guilt, shame, and all that around it. I'm quick to catch myself when I, you know, bark at somebody. You know, the angry badger comes out a lot when I'm trying to protect people, including myself. So when someone isn't fully being honored or respected, I tend to have something to say about that. Doesn't mean I can't be kind or compassionate about how I say it. But that's the art form of letting go, because all these experts tell you that there's a certain way that you're supposed to do it. And if you're doing it their way, then you're not doing it your way. And if you're not doing it your way, then you can't own the mistakes. You can't own the responsibility, and you can't hold yourself accountable to overcome those limitations in your mind, in your emotions, and in your behaviors. It's about consciousness. Being consciously aware of your senses, all of them, the multidimensional beings that we are, and then responding in a more evolved, mature, spiritual, whatever label you want to use, manner. It comes down to consideration. And, I'm really grateful for all the people that are, hanging out. I can see that we got a lot of live viewers, and, I'm sure there'll be people with the replays. But I ask a serious question. What hurts the most? Someone doing something, lying, cheating, stealing, whatever, or not being considered for how that would impact you? Because most people I know, when if you reached out to them and said, "Hey, I'm in need, I'm in help, I need help," there's help available, even if it's food banks or homeless shelters or any of those public service and nonprofits that are out there serving the community. We don't have to do it all ourselves. In fact, I've helped detox a few people off of heroin, and I wouldn't recommend most people do that. It's not fun. It's not pretty. And I know my limits. I would never detox someone off of heavy alcohol because I know the facts. And that's about being accountable and responsible for how I walk and affect other people. If I believe my energy healing will heal everything and everyone, then I'm in some kind of delusion, and people need to watch out for me. Because it's been in my experience as an energy healer, sometimes you have miracles happen on the table and it changes someone's life. They need one session and their pain and all the things are gone. And then there's other times, not so much. Is that a reflection on my skill set? No, it's just it's a reflection of the relationship and where we are in this consciousness. And people always used to comment how fun it was to work with me because I can just drop in and relax real quick with just a few breaths. But if I was to look back at my life, I used to have my dad tie me up and put me in tight boxes because I wanted to learn to be like Harry Houdini. I wanted to learn how to escape tight places and how to defeat the odds and how to become the impossible. And it's fun. I haven't thought about those fun memories in a long time. Why? Because they were covered up with a lot of freaking pain. And through heartbreak and betrayal and abandonment and all those fun things, just boom, boom, boom. Just let it go. Let it be. Let it be what it's going to be. It's going to be what it's going to be for the highest good. It's beyond me. It's beyond my control. I can only do what I can do. I can only be me. I can only play my part. I can only be there. I can only be willing. I can only participate. Man, talk about letting go. I can only be me. And nobody I don't care their psychic ability, their gift, their pedigree, their certifications, their whatever can tell you nor me who we are meant to be. If we were meant to have an instruction guide, we would all have one. Now, I know there's going to be people, oh, there's books and there's this and there's that. Yes, for those that don't want to think for themselves. Jesus didn't have a religion. He didn't practice a religion. He practiced compassion, understanding, grace. And then was willing to do what most other healers during that time weren't willing to do, and that was to die in a public spectacle. So a sacrifice meant something. Could you imagine what would have happened if they didn't have public executions back then and they just sniped them out like we do these days? Just a thought. And I'm so grateful for all the artists and creatives and it's what always inspired me to try to help build up those communities and those things, because we challenge people's points of view, we challenge people's emotions, we challenge the stagnancy of what we consume with our senses. So I'm really grateful for those talented artists. And I used to wish that, I was that good. But and then I realized that it's just practice and the willingness to try. And I got the craft. I start crafting again. That's fun. Most of the things that I craft, though, I can't sell. But I enjoy walking through nature and collecting things and putting them together in fun ways. Well, then, way that I choose to express myself, I don't need to make money on it. That was always the hard part about being a photographer. To me, the photographer and the subject made the art. So it was hard for me to receive a compensation for a photo shoot, unless it was for marketing or promo or something, portraits or whatever. But to make art, like, it was just like, come to the studio, let's see what we can create. And if we make something cool, then, we'll submit it in the magazines, or we'll submit it to art galleries, or we'll submit it to things. And that was how, I built my photography career. Let's show up and see what happens. The magic of life. And that was created through sales and all the other things that I had done up to my life in that time. Same thing in the wellness business. It's hard for me to sell people on wellness, because if I have to sell you that you want to feel better, then I don't know what that says. But my mom was a great example of that, as I was being challenged with, I don't understand why people don't want to let go of the things that no longer serve them, or what's hurting the planet, or hurting humanity, or each other, or any of those things. And then we got on a conversation how she didn't want to suffer at the end of her life. And I said, well, aren't you suffering now? And she said, well, what do you mean? And I said, well, you go to the doctor 3 or 4 times. It seems like at least have to go for labs 3 or 4 times a month for different things. And they're all coming back negative, so you're fine, but you have to keep going and getting the fluids and the IVs and the dyes and the contrast and all this radiation and all this stuff to your body to prove that you don't have anything wrong with you. And then they put you on these pills and this, that, and the other, and so now you're having to add all this extra stuff into your life because you don't want to change your diet or you don't want to change your lifestyle in any way. But it seems to me with the side effects and all the different things that you're not as happy, or you're what some would say suffering to some degree. Maybe it's a comfortable suffer. And she thought about it for a while and she was like, dang, you're right. And I'm not here to tell anyone how to be or who to be or what's the right way to be or how to live or should you go to the doctor or not go to the doctor. You know, those are that's your responsibility. I'm here trying to be a reminder that we're all having this human experience at 12:46 p.m. on May 27th of 2026. What's going on in the world is what's going on in the world, whether we are consciously aware of what's happening or not, or whether the news reports it, or we read something on the internet or whatever. Life is still happening. Life is still going on. There's still possibilities. There's still opportunities. Still amazing people out there. There's still amazing experiences to be had. There's still amazing food to eat and life to be experienced. And yes, we are coming from a limited perception of what we're capable of as humanity, because we had a mindset through our conditioning of how to create comfort and control and convenience. And as long as everybody walked a certain way, then we're safe. But oof, that person over there that looks different than us, then they're a threat to the paradigm. They are the Neo in the Matrix. That's going to make you question reality, and heaven forbid you ask a question rather than just regurge what you've been told your whole fucking life. Dang it. Excuse my language again. It's a practice. It's funny. I guess Larkin didn't make it today. I guess she slept through her alarm again. But we were talking about that. That we needed to watch. How passionate we got, because when we talk against things, that it limits us. If I speak out on social media, I can watch my social media rankings and the viewer, how many people see my posts and everything. It'll go down by over 50%. And then I'll play nice for a little bit, and within a week or two, it's back up to where it was. And then, I say something again, or I promote my business, or, our community or whatever, and then down again. It just wants to feed the machine. It doesn't want you to cultivate something that you can take and do outside of it. It wants to consume. That's what our man-made systems of commerce have created, even with technology. I mean, the fact that Kroger, which is a grocery store for those that aren't in the area, made it like a couple $2 billion last year selling consumer information. Now, I was just there yesterday. It didn't lower the food price. It didn't increase the locality of the food. It's still being processed in other countries, and the challenge with that is it's not as healthy for us. The healthiest food, of course, is the ones that we grow ourselves, because science has shown that our energy also communicates with the plant, so the plant will tend to provide you more nutrients of what you need, versus if somebody else was to maintain that certain plant. Pretty wild stuff. Not that this hasn't been in our ancient texts for thousands of years. Just modern science is now able to have the tools to be able to measure it in real time. doesn't change what the truth of the cosmos is. Same things that everybody's been talking about for thousands of years. So it can be a little challenging, like, oh, we gotta keep talking about this stuff. Why do we keep talking about it? Why don't we just show up and do something together? What would it actually be like to have an opportunity to meet heart to heart and say, hey, let's walk together. We're going to have our challenges. We're going to have challenging conversations. There's going to be things that are going to come up. There's going to be things that you do and that I don't like, and things that I do that you don't like. And we're either going to get to learn how to accept them within ourselves, or the other person is going to see the limitation in that action and choose a different way, or not. But that is what we're letting go from, or of, is the entitlement, the protection of the personified, if my life doesn't look this way or that way, then it's your fault. No, it's my fault. I'll take the blame. Totally fine with that. If that helps you get to where you need to go, give it to me, baby. I'll carry it for you. I'll transmute it and I'll continue my walk. That's why I have courage. That's why I have bravery. That's why sometimes it seems like I'm fearless or naive, because I take people at their word, who they're showing up as, even though I see behind it. And there was a beautiful example of that the other day. A few years ago, I'd have been all kinds of excited because there was a great opportunity that showed up that could have helped save the center and made things a little easier to move financially, but it's not the right fit. It's the way it is. And I used to compromise on that. That's where I was naive. Because it's my job as the steward or the captain or the whatever to maintain the consistency and the values of the container. Not about me or you. It's about we, how we walk together, how we talk together, how we sit together, how we eat together. You don't want to eat meat? Awesome. I'll have a beautiful whole food meal with you. You want me to eat frankenfood? That's not going to happen. I promise you. Not going to eat it. And why? Because it comes from man and I don't trust it. Excuse me. So, as far as that's concerned, because the same people that own stock in the pharmaceutical companies also own stock in the food companies. And if you know anything about the stock market, the whole purpose of it is to make money, use money to make money. It has no morals, it has no ethics. And you hear it all the time. Oh, we had to make profits for our stock. Otherwise, the CEO is going to lose their job, or the board of directors are going to fire this person or that person, because the purpose of it was to make money. That's okay. Nothing wrong with it. But how are you going about it? How are you doing it? What's the impact that you have on yourself and the lives of other people, your consumers, your clients, the planet? It's hard to be conscious, people. It's hard to be aware. And it's so easy to just give up and let go. What's it matter? I try to recycle, but less than 5% of what's recycled isn't actually recycled. It's just sold to a third world country, like Bali. What's it matter? What can I do? I'm just one drop in the cosmos. Just one person. It's a great question. What can we do? Sustainability is self sustainable is a joke. It's an urban legend. Because you have a relationship with the food you eat, the water you drink, the house you live in, the clothes you wear, the herbs you use, the people you communicate with. It's impossible. Something to think about. You know, I like the idea too of, you know, a utopia where just everything just happens. And that's what we get to create. That's our opportunity here to bring heaven into earth, right? Build these beautiful gardens together that provide beautiful, nourishing foods for us and our planet. Clean the waterways so everything can coexist in a harmonious way as nature intended it, because we are nature. We are an animal with the ability to forecast, to predict, to co create. And how are we using this in a good way or in a responsible way that creates what we actually want within the moment of now? Because this moment is what creates the next one. The next one creates the next one. And that's how we change the future. Yes, we have to go back into time, clear those emotional residues, those thought patterns, those things back there, because it makes it easier for us to be in consciousness and conscious awareness without tension and stress and inflammation and those things. Whether it's in the mind, whether it's in the heart, whether it's in the body, whether it's in our finances, whatever. All comes down to energy and how we define it creates the meaning and the emotional reaction. Dr. Yumoto's work discusses this in length on the effects of how water, which is representation of our emotions, changes its crystalline structure based on the vibration of the words that we use, whether it's internally or we speak them outward. When we speak them outwardly, we are casting spells. We are predicting something. And it's fun, to walk with people for 20 plus years and they go, man, you talked about that like 20 years ago. Yeah, saw it coming. Just took a little while to get here. And that's the fun part about our lives. So, but I really do appreciate everyone tuning in and commenting and sharing and joining, enhancing your world, even as a discovery member, which is our free membership that gives you access to our online community, our virtual healings and in-person offerings here in Northern Kentucky. As that community continues to grow and there's more and more enhancers signing up and contributing their gifts and things like that, it's only going to get better and better. So please tune into that, check into that, sign up for that, whatever. Walk with us, because I'll walk with you through the ups and downs, of life circumstance so we can create the happy, healthy, and harmonious lifestyles that we authentically desire. With much love and gratitude for all that you are, all that you do, and all that you choose to be. Continue on, my brothers and sisters. Let's make this world a great place for our future children and generations. Ona.